Hello, you're watching TVP World News. I'm Jonasz Lewiński. Ukraine has struck 3 Russian drilling platforms belonging to Lukoil, one of Russia's largest oil producers in the Caspian Sea. Russia uses the platforms for oil and gas extraction. According to the Ukrainian General Staff, Ukrainian forces hit the Vladimir Filanovsky, Yuri Korchagin and Valery Graifir platforms on Sunday. Footage released by Ukraine's Special Operations Forces shows details of the alleged attack. Oil and gas exports cover a major part of Russia's federal budget. They also play a key role in sustaining Russia's war effort in Ukraine. Ukraine's capital Kyiv remains gripped by cold and harsh winter, with Russian strikes on critical infrastructure and apartment buildings leaving thousands without heating and electricity. Here is more on how the city's residents are dealing with one of the war's most challenging moments.
Following the recent Russian strikes and drone attacks on Kyiv, the Ukrainian state grid operator had ordered the city's power system to be shut down due to damages, only to bring the electricity back in the next hour in a few areas after much needed repairs.
Our community workers are working day and night to repair and to provide heating. It's a difficult operation. I want to thank them all for the work they've been doing under the extremely low temperatures that we have now in our city.
According to authorities, currently as many as 1,000 buildings were left without power and even 6,000 without heating, effectively hindering Kyiv residents' everyday activities during winter.
Before the strike, it was good, normal warmth. We had everything. Until they turn the heating back on, I will have to sleep in my clothes.
These little gas canisters, we use them to heat things up. Today we will cook something to eat, because we haven't cooked anything for 2 days already.
Because of the electricity outages in Kyiv, the residents of damaged buildings have been stocking buckets and plastic bottled waters with ice in lieu of using faucets.
Well, thank God they fixed the electricity in our building entrance. Now I can even heat up a little water.
It's been 4 years of war. How can you not stock up on water? How can you not? There is water sitting everywhere.
To support Kyiv residents, the authorities and services in Kyiv have set up orange tents, locally known as points of resistance. In these tents, the Ukrainian may charge their phones, warm up, or talk to psychiatrists and psychologists. Despite the temperatures already reaching -12 degrees Celsius, some still find a bright silver lining when thinking about the future.
Everything will be fine and everything will be Ukrainian again.
With the war nearing the end of its 4th year, consecutive Russian strikes weaponizing winter, and temperature expected to drop to as low as -20 in the coming weeks, Ukrainians and Kyiv residents must keep bracing up for one of the most brutal winters in decades.
According to President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the country's current priority is to bring back power and heating supply to regions affected by recent Russian attacks, including the capital Kyiv. In his latest evening address, Zelenskyy said repair work is continuing to fully restore electricity to homes across the country.
Unfortunately, there are communities where the situation remains extremely difficult, particularly in parts of towns and villages in the border regions. In Kyiv, repair work is still ongoing after the strike that occurred the day before yesterday. The key task is to restore power supply to all homes. In the Dnipro, Zaporizhia, Kharkiv and Donetsk regions, our energy workers, repair crews and all municipal services are everywhere right now, doing incredible and genuinely heroic work. Harsh winter weather adds to the difficulties. That is why it is so hard, and that is precisely the kind of weather the Russians are trying to exploit. I thank every person in Ukraine who, through repairs and restoration, despite everything, is defending life.
Following the capture of Venezuela's leader Nicolas Maduro, Donald Trump sets his sights on other U.S. neighbors. Next week, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is expected to hold talks with representatives of both Denmark and Greenland concerning the future of the Arctic island. Meanwhile, the U.S. president also urges Cuba to make a deal with the U.S. before it's too late, suggesting on social media that Marco Rubio himself could become the next leader of the country. Paweł Trzaskowski takes a closer look at US diplomacy in the beginning of 2026.
Europe's help to embattled Ukraine has recently been acknowledged by the US president.
Well, look, Europe has been doing so much for Ukraine.
But the pleasantries ended there.
But it hasn't been enough. I would say that President Putin is not afraid of Europe. He's afraid of the United States of America, as led by me.
And the United States, led by Trump, is still to say its final word in the Russian-Ukrainian war. Kyiv would definitely want to see some of the heavy-handed US diplomacy being used on Moscow, just as it happened in Venezuela.
If it's possible to deal with dictators this way, then the US knows what to do next.
But Washington's attention has now gone in a different direction.
There will be no more oil or money going to Cuba. A zero. I strongly suggest they make a deal before it's too late.
This comes as Trump also says that the idea of US Secretary of State Marco Rubio becoming the next president of Cuba sounds good to him. But Rubio is already busy with Greenland, where he is set to meet with representatives of this autonomous territory and Denmark next week to discuss its future. The US wants more control over the landmass and states these demands quite emphatically.
They really don't want to get enmeshed in, the committee-style governance of NATO or the European Union, where you have to sit down and get permissions to do anything on a piece of territory from 12 or 15 different leaders.
This rough way of handling diplomacy by Washington during Trump's second term causes concern over the future of numerous international bodies, most notably NATO. Only this week, Trump signed a memorandum ordering the United States to withdraw from 66 international organizations, one of the biggest such moves ever. A clear sign that Washington distances itself from international governance, a pattern already observed in Moscow and Beijing.
We definitely see a trend where large powers, the US, Russia, China, see themselves as effectively in a two-track international law system, where there are rules that apply to the world but not to them.
However, according to some experts, the US has a long history of pulling away and then returning to international governance. The pendulum swings far away now, but it's bound to return when Washington finds itself in distress.
At some point, surely the United States will say, we need international law again. We need some of these mechanisms again.
The main question is, when will it happen? And what shape the world order will have taken by then? Paweł Trzaskowski for TVP World.
Anti-government protests in Iran have spread across more than 100 cities. As the situation rapidly slips out of the regime's control, the Ayatollahs are reportedly bringing Hezbollah forces to fight the civilians and warn of retaliation if the US decides to intervene in the country. The death toll among the protesters, according to various sources, has risen to over 500 people. Natalia Komarov reports.
The situation in Iran is heating up. Images coming out of the country show massive crowds chanting anti-regime slogans and setting regime symbols on fire. The Iranian authorities responded by issuing a full internet blackout, so the information coming out of the country is sparse. President Masoud Pezeshkian claims the United States and Israel are responsible for orchestrating the riots.
They have trained a group inside the country and abroad and have brought terrorists into the country to burn down mosques, businesses and bazaars.
European officials expressed support for the protesters, while members of the Iranian diaspora worldwide have also called for a regime change. In London, a man climbed to the balcony of the Iranian embassy to rip down the flag of the Islamic Republic and put the historic lion and sun flag in its place.
I've been on my phone 24/7. I think a lot of people right now have that same problem, that we cannot even sleep. And what we all want is just basic human rights, that it isn't provided by the Islamic Republic.
This time it's not a protest, but a revolution. All the provinces are in the streets, millions of people.
According to human rights organizations and independent media outlets, the number of protesters killed since the riots began in late December could be as high as 2,000. On Saturday, the US State Department claimed troops from Iraq's Popular Mobilization Forces and Lebanon's Hezbollah have been moved to Iran to be used by the regime against protesters.
In a scenario where defections within Iran's own security forces occur, potentially pushing the government to rely on external loyal actors to compensate for internal weaknesses.
Earlier this month, US President Donald Trump threatened an intervention should authorities in Tehran use force against the protesters. Now, the New York Times reports Trump has already been briefed on potential scenarios for military operations inside Iran.
I have advice for the delusional President of the United States. Be careful, so that you are not miscalculating. Know that in case of an attack on Iran, the lands occupied by Israel and US military bases in the region will be our legitimate targets.
Reza Pahlavi, the son of Iran's last Shah, has been attempting to emerge as a viable alternative to the Islamic regime. Living in the United States, he communicates with the protesters online.
President Trump, as the leader of the free world, has closely observed your indescribable bravery and has declared that he is ready to help you. Do not abandon the streets.
But does a man who spent most of his life outside Iran stand a chance against the Islamic regime?
There is a growing tendency to reassess the history through comparison. As a result, many in the younger generation increasingly see Mr. Pahlavi as a unifying figure and as the political heir to his father and grandfather.
For the people in Iran, as well as Iranians worldwide, this seems like a decisive moment. And following the events in Venezuela, as well as the 2024 fall of Assad in Syria, the Kremlin is watching closely whether it will lose another important ally. For TVP World, Natalia Komarov.
And now it's time for some news from the world of sports. Canoeist Klaudia Zwolinska won the 91st Polish Sports Personality of the Year award on Saturday evening, causing one of the biggest upsets in the ceremony's recent history.
Klaudia Zwolinska won the public vote, finishing ahead of star athletes Iga Świątek, who finished second, and volleyball player Wilfried Leon, who was third. The canoeist had an outstanding 2025, winning 2 golds and a bronze at the Canoe Slalom World Championships in October, becoming the first person ever to win 3 individual medals at a single tournament in the process.
Ladies and gentlemen, my voice is shaking a little because I really didn't expect this at all. I'm truly shocked. I'm so happy. When I was a child, I always watched the annual awards ceremony and dreamed of winning.
The award is decided by the public voting on a short list of 25 sports personalities drawn up by a panel of experts. When the list of nominees has been whittled down to 10, the voting moves on to the second phase, held during the gala ceremony. And it was during the live voting on Saturday that Claudia Mania took over.
I cannot say that I thought that Zwolinska would win. I sort of briefly previewed her when I wrote about her a while ago, and thought, yeah, well, it's very significant achievements. No, let's just say she won 2 golds and a bronze at the World Championships in Australia in October, and that was a fantastic achievement because within the context of canoeing, that was the first time someone had won 3 individual medals, like ever, not just a pole. And so within the realm of canoeing, that's huge.
Świątek was the hot favorite following her Wimbledon title last year, while Wilfried Leon was one of the driving forces behind Poland's gold in the Volleyball Nations League. Robert Kubica's victory at the 24 Hours of Le Mans saw him claim 5th spot, and Robert Lewandowski's 42 goals for Barcelona last season earned him 7th place. Tomasz Dylak was also recognized with an award for Coach of the Year in honor of his work propelling Polish women's boxing forward. 3 fighters were among the 25 nominees. Andrzej Bargiel received the Achievement of the Year for his ski descent down Mount Everest, the first ever without supplemental oxygen. The ceremony held at Warsaw's Grand Theatre, organized since 1926, was celebrating not just the achievements of 2025, but 100 years of Polish sporting excellence.
And that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and please stay with us here on TVP World.